And we're rolling. Right, okay, here we go. It's a bit of a momentous video for me, this one, because I've been waiting for a couple of years or more for this piece of information, because to get to a next step, when you take something that's really, really complicated, what you want to do to be able to share it is you take, and this is what sharing, teaching, sort of, things is about, really, is putting it in a way that you can communicate it to somebody else in a pretty efficient and effective way, if you can not get lost in the words themselves, right? So that's my son, by the way, he's practicing his drums, and I've been thinking about education for quite some time, and how we communicate and how we share and how we pass on our knowledge, and what sort of knowledge and what's the right areas. But let's try and keep it simple, and this is what I've been aiming to do, is come up with a framework, a simple framework that everybody can exist within, but also is flexible enough and variable enough and creative enough and structured enough that it can accommodate everybody's own individual paths. But I just had a dream. And I had a crazy big ship, and the waves were as big as the ship. But I was out there looking at this massive thing, and just the waves were seemed to be hundreds of miles high. I was just sat there watching it like it was just coasting through the universe. It was pretty awesome. Prime is your core, right? It's the prime instincts, right? And if you split this up, because the brain, right, is split up into three sort of sections. There's loads of sections, but they usually just go on, the three sections: forebrain, midbrain, and your hindbrain. They've got different names. Anyway, see, 'cause the brain is your computer, right? And your emotions are the power. They are the powerhouse, right? And the thing is, so many of our mistakes, our own self-proclaimed mistakes, not saying other people have made mistakes, looking at our own choices and where we've tripped and where we've fell, I would genuinely say that those have been because I didn't understand how I worked. Your prime, it's the real basics, right? It's like I'll give flashbacks to the last video I did. A candle appeared in the which was quite nice and spontaneous, but now the candles sort of come back to me, really, because what I'm sort of seeing is you prime, the centre of yourself is the wick, right? It's the wick in the candle, and your secondary systems is like your body, sort of like around, and then you've got the higher sort of intelligent working connections, and what I'm finding as I run through these, what can you call them, simulations, debates in your own mind, see, because this is why it's taken so long, because I've had to add so many me's into the conversation, and what I mean by that is that you can't come up with an answer on your own. To really get some depth, you have to have a conversation with yourself. It's nobody else about. You have to have a conversation with yourself. You can't just with that and have an answer, right? Because you've got to have that as well, because things need bouncing off of. You can't bounce something off yourself from a singular. So if you imagine it, I've said many times to friends, people, you know, there's a proper full table, boardroom people in my head. And I don't mean boardroom like business people, but it's just a simple way to explain it. And they're all having different sort of conversations, and you know, one pulling somebody else up over some. And what I mean by that is different sides of you, different ways of looking at things, and thinking about a question or thinking about a situation, and being able to take it apart and everybody own a different bit and have a debating sort of questioning, playful game going off in your head. Because we're applying this to education, and we're applying, and the reason that we're applying it to education is because as parents and carers and decent human beings, we want to live in a place, in a way that supports the next generations to heading into a positive, you know, building time. I worked with people for a long time, and when they've been in a situation and I've said to them, look, do you want this to get better or worse? Nobody's ever said worse. It's my belief in people that people want things to get better. They're just not really sure how, for half of the time, most of the time, some of the time. Different for everybody's life. So we've got the wick, we've got the wax, we've got the candle, and then we've got the flame, you know, which is the higher sort of intelligence, burn bright, see the candle. Communication, right, emotions, engagement, or social. Social pluses, right? Not social negatives. Not it's putting the focus on giving and sharing, not taking and owning, right? Or should I say, what you take and own, right? Whereas a focus on, you know, owning your, being responsible for your decisions and your actions, and not just possessions and stuff. See, because you used to have sort of infants and juniors. Primary school sort of been wrapped up, you know, the infants and juniors. They're two different stages. Because juniors, see, this is where we want to go, because it's too structured. We're telling kids, you will do this, this and this subject, right? This is where it needs to branch off. Once we've got kids, and they accelerate at different times, right? So we're not really having as much of an age, right? This is not really so much on years and time, right? People move at different paces, so what you've got to have is you've got to have a structure that allows progression. Once you've passed this section of content, you move on to the next one, right? Now they do that in the very higher educations, although there's still quite a lot of time. Once you can get an understanding to a certain level, and that's all it is, right? Your exams, your grades, your everything else. It's once you understand it to a particular level, if you go to the next one. Now, some people can do that in 3 weeks. Some people it's going to take 6 months, right? So there needs to be, there's no motivation, right, for the bright ones, because a lot of the system that we've currently got, you make the quicker, brighter ones actually learn at the pace of the slowest learner in the class. Now, one, how frustrating is that for young people and kids? Two, it's going to do nothing for the people who are a bit not slower, but people who don't absorb the information quite as quick, because they're going to be perceiving themselves to be, because they compare against other people, they're going to be perceiving themselves to be slower, and it's just different in a different area. And that's what we've got to accommodate, is to stop people feeling absolutely rubbish about themselves, right, for no reason, because half of the challenge of getting through this period of life is getting through and still having your mental and emotional self intact, because this can wreck you, right, how the systems are. It's very harsh. So the secondary, right, after we've worked on communicating, right, handling our emotions, if you can get a kid by the time they're 4 or 5, right, to not throw strops, right, to not be a mardy little sod, right, and to get on with other people, on a few various levels, then awesome. You know what I mean? They've got a great start. So we've got very early communication and non-verbal, as much non-verbal as possible, because the less you speak, the more you observe body language, eyes, situations, your observation skills. That's your input to be able to then process, to be able to then, if you choose to, deliver your output. Right. So early. So then what's coming sort of junior, after infants, junior school, primary school, to prime you for that. But we need to use these words for a different structure. Secondary school, also got to say junior school, because it's going to come down to about there, right? It's going to be loads and loads and loads of different topics, hobby, what you would consider hobbies, interests, skills, trades, all of these things, as many of them, and if people want to move from one to the other, that should be accommodated, right? And it needs to be accommodated, because any parent or anybody who's responsibility of young people for a while and seen them grow up, and I do it with my own kids, is you want them to experience as many different things in that stage as possible, right, that they might be interested in, right? People, I can understand why they do it. When somebody joins a club or a thing about this sort of age, and you go, right, that's, you're in there, you're not quitting now, you stick at it. And even though the kid might have thought that they were going to really enjoy that, and then if they didn't, once they've committed to it, that's it. It becomes a very negative experience, what should have been a positive. So I get that, we need to learn not to give up too easy in some things, right? But other things, if you're not enjoying it and it's not producing some positives, then why are you doing it? And that's for anybody, in any situation, in any walk of life. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? if it's not positive. So if they go off it, or if it's not, let them switch to something else, because it may well be that something that they try that they thought they were going to enjoy, and then they switched, then at a later stage they come back to it, right? But if you've turned it into a negative experience, they're less likely to come back to it. So this is what I'm saying, is you allow the young people the choice to navigate through that system, right? You still sort of keep the framework of the system and the supportive control over that, but you let them be as flexible as they want through that, because the aim of that structure is to experience and learn as many different things that you will have a positive reaction to, right, within that time. Because again, remember, the intelligence is direction. If you know about it, right, you can pick, lots of different directions, right? The emotions are the power. How strong is the connection to that? So your intelligence is the direction of where you want to head, based on your experience, your knowledge, and your emotional connection, the power connection to that. If it's a really strong, powerful emotional connection, you can already tell it's going to, it's not that hard to understand. Think of, the intelligence as the direction, the emotions as the powerful connection, or the power, right? How much you're going to put into that, and that's positive and negative. So what we've got is then, this learns about ourselves, what surrounds us, and what we can then interact with as far as choice goes. Then when you've got that, and when you've done this, and then through naturally, right, you're going to get preferences, you're going to get areas that people are drawn to. Some people love to work outside, right? Some people like to work alone, some people love to work in groups. There's so many different areas that I believe that if you allow people to choose their own area, right, after they're emotionally sort of aware, they can communicate, they've had all of this different experience, and that's registered within them and in a certain way. All of these tasted sessions, qualifications, and this is where we're sort of missing out on the technology thing. Really, is, I'll tell you something now. They should have been on this ages ago. Gaming is such a massive money maker, right, which is why I think they're sort of keeping it as a separate thing, because it makes so much money. But gaming, you're not telling me, right, that you can't bring Minecraft, right, into DT, right, into design technology. You're not telling me that they can't make a simulator that can teach you how to plumb, how to do plumbing. Make it Mario, make it, who's the plumber anyway, right? But where you can actually have the sizes and what wrenches you need for whatever, or what piping you need for this. Make the measurements accurate. Make the the structure, and make it fun. I get kids on that, and I tell you something now, right? The kids will absolutely tear through it, because the reaction to gaming, right, is really the reaction that you want to learning. And it seems to have been sort of hijacked a little bit, really. But anyway, the learning tools and gaming can be integrated and used far more efficiently and effectively than it currently is. But the only reasons, well, not the only reasons, I'm sure there's lots, but some reasons that I think that they might not is just purely money, and also that we wouldn't allow then the games that they play at home and the games that they play with friends or sat alone, right, are not games that you would be allowed in the current school structure, right? You know, it won't. So maybe that's another reason. So we've gone through early years and developing them essential awareness tools. Junior or secondary, or half a secondary and most of junior, needs to be loads and loads of different experiences, loads and loads of different trades, right? And what do they enjoy? What type of person? Right? What type of energy? Right? Are they creative? Are they practical? Well, you're only going to know that by talking to them on a one-to-one individual basis, which is why you can't come up with these blanket systems of, you know, everybody's going to fit into this system. No, you make a system that fits around people. You don't make a people fit around the system unless you want to just control the people. If you want creativity, and you want balance with the environment, and you want growth, and you want new ideas, and you want better ways of doing things, you need creative people, because you need the spectrum, right? And yeah, fair enough, if you know the spectrum of learning and awareness. If you've got something that's really, really, really good, then you know you could say, well, you're going to generate something that's really, really, really right. Well, you can, but it's about knowing. If you know that something's got the potential to happen, you can plan for it. It's just being aware. Higher education comes from that. It's just what it is. It's an accelerated connection, and you can just say simply that, you know, this is the supercharged engine, right? Well, unless you know how to turn your engine on properly, right, and do the basic functions of clutch, gear, right, and then unless you've had some experience of, say, different tracks, right, and turning left and right at different speeds and things like that, unless you've had the experience, right, of doing that, you're not going to be able to drive and break any lap records, and you're not going to be able to win your own personal race. You're not racing against anybody else. You're only ever racing against yourself. And when you realise that, you're doing pretty well. So the basic functions, the experience, and these things combined. How many times have you heard people say, you can't buy experience, there's no substitute for experience? Well, I tend to agree on a pretty large scale there, which is why I believe that it's important to get that experience then, not as soon as you can, as in rushing for it, because everything just seems to be a rush then, right? But having the basic knowledge and working through experiences, whereas kids are like, seem to be like little chickens in pens, and I just don't think it's a very well, it is what it is for the time that we've got it. But it could be better, I do believe. It could be better, it could be healthier, it could grow better. Well, because what we're doing, right, in the end, is all of the things that we're sort of wanting to address early on, we're having to deal with them. We're having to deal with them up here. Because what happens is, because they're not given the right amount of support and structure, and this is regular, communication, regulation of ourselves, right? The emotional and intelligent gauges that help us not become a pressure cooker, because they don't get dealt with here, right? The young people, and I'm not talking everybody, but enough to cause us a serious drag, like air, and we're not travelling as we should, right? Because the people who don't get supported, and it's a lot, then end up spending this time, instead of sort of like going through positive experiences, right? What they tend to do is still be alternating. See, the alternating current is your water, electricity, and you're bouncing from, it's a yes, no, right? It's a stop, go. This is what you should I, shouldn't I, right? Ooh, will I, won't I? Should I stay or should I go, right? And what happens is, this is, this can be the killer rather than any disease. This is the disease. This is the uncertainty. And it's a bit like, let's put it this way, let's say that nothing's bad for you. Only if you think it is, right? Guilt and negative emotion, guilt and fear, right? Terrible for you. Right? Although some would argue very necessary, supposed to be an experience. What I'm saying is, we spend far too long in the categories of guilt and fear than we should. And even if that's just even not just, because it's still it's massive in your subconscious, right? 'Cause you've got a conscious and a subconscious, like two train tracks running parallel. But as a tracks can switch, so can your conscious, subconscious. And your subconscious is, think of it as a USB, right? It's an additional, it's a plug-in. You've got your computer, consciousness, you've got subconsciousness, which plugs in access somewhere else. I've gone off the other. What I wanted to say on that was that sometimes worrying about something does you far more damage than the thing itself. A bit like when somebody's trying to stop smoking and they're stressing out so much about stopping smoking that the doctor just says, look, just have a cigarette. the stress that you cause yourself from trying not to, and you bounce in between that alternating current, because they're all frequencies in this place, that's causing you more distress and more stress than the effects of having a cigarette. So that's something to remember. If you find yourself, actually, let me just have a minute, let me just take a step back, right, and let me just have a moment, because this stress that I'm feeling is doing me more damage than whatever the situation is that I'm dealing with, right? If you can get to that point where you can give yourself a minute in them situations, well done you, right? That's awesome. So we're dealing with a lot of these unaddressed or unresolved, or a lack of emotional and mental early development. We're dealing with this later on, which costs us, as you can imagine, in lots of different areas. So this higher function is when you is when you are aware, when your experience is there, right? And when you can find your place. This is about finding your place where you feel 100%, where you've got the power of one in yourself, and also when you can then find your place to contribute, to add, to give, right, to take as well. Take your place by giving, right? So you can give and take at the same time, right? And so you find your place. And I believe that everybody can find a place, and yeah, fair enough, it might mean that you have certain areas where you have some less, and certain areas that you find more, but what's wrong with that? If they're the areas that, you know, we as humans and intelligent functional beings, you know, in this space, then let's head in that direction. Maybe we might naturally, you know, find a little bit more balance with our environment, and then not have so much of the issues that we've got, where we're impacting it, you know, the place that we exist in a negative way, because it's a pretty awesome place to spend some time. It's a very interactive learning place, but it's not happening right at the moment, but I believe it will, because it's got to. It will get to this point, right? We can't let it get any worse, because emotionally and mentally, I can feel it like you can feel it when you actually stop and you think, and you imagine some 13-year-old, 14-year-old in secondary school, lad or lass, right? And the social pressures, and, you know, and the pressure for achievement and grades, and the time pressures, and it's just too much, and this is why in recent times we've seen it, you know, escalating suicide sort of races, because you get to that point where you can't see things improving, and you feel like the only way out is the way out. I wonder how much of a choice those people who've taken that road, I wonder how much of a choice they felt they had. Because if you feel like you've got no choice, then you do feel like you're just a cog in a machine. Who wants to feel like that? Yeah, feel part of something, but that's not the same. So we need to find, well, we need to find a new way. There's loads of new ways, right? We need to actually be brave and just make the changes. And there'll be there's a middle period, isn't there, of change, and that's the bit that people don't like. So some people would much rather carry on in a really poor, unhelpful, unproductive, unhappy system, rather than see what's on the other side of the fence. And they say that the grass is not always greener on the other side, or it's different. And the more different experiences you have, the more you're likely to be able to cope with the unknown, because you get yourself tooled up early on, intelligence, experience, and then you can handle whatever comes. I thought the other day, because I had fear of the unknown falls into a lot of people's categories, I would imagine. And I thought that about myself. And I thought, yeah, but when I know something, I can deal with it. There's not very much that I can think of that I couldn't deal with. So I'm thinking, well, why am I bothered about the unknown? Because if it's unknown, and I don't know where it is, so why should I be bothered about it? Or why should I let it impact me in a negative way? Because when it's no longer unknown, it's known. And when it's known, I'll deal with it. So there we go. Don't be so scared of the unknown. It's all different experiences. But we need to change our education system, right? Or the way that we show and support young people, kids, new ones to this place, and it will make our lives better as well. It'll be far richer, far more rewarding, and you will have more experiences. I've also got thoughts on the work system as well, how we work once we get past this sort of place. Because in my universe, you've only worked 3 days a week. In fact, you only work 2 of them. One day you do some extra in your community. Right? So how's about that? Nobody works more than 2 days a week, and the other time has family, adventure, travel, interaction, hobbies, interests, skills, all that sort of thing. So yeah, what am I doing? Am I pitching for a job? Let's see what develops. Alright, but yeah, come live in my universe, and you'll only work 2 days a week. Alright, I don't like doing that because it's on there. So I'm going to stop that now. And I'll see you next time I either have a dream or feel like making a video. Be well.